Who was your best friend and why? What was your favorite subject? Did you take the bus or bike? And more importantly, what pizza did you like? The pizza plate problem. With her eyes fixed on her reflection, Carlotta rummaged around in the bathroom drawer. She gingerly bent closer to the mirror to examine a patch of skin on her jawline. Her hand, meanwhile, was going over the lipstick tubes scattered in the vanity. To anyone else, Lavish Plum and Bold Sky would feel exactly the same. But Carlotta knew to run her finger over top of the lipsticks and circle the entire edge. She grabbed the tube that had a small, rough chip on one side. The other tube she let slip from her hand. The drawer slammed shut, and the reject tube rolled toward the back. It took Carlotta 5 seconds to apply her Lavish Plum, 5 more minutes to make it out of the house. She ruffled her bob on her way down the rickety stairs. Right as she stepped outside through the back door, she heard her mother call for her. "Kara?" a voice sounded from the living room. Closing the door behind her, Carlotta took off toward the bus stop. She should have spent more time in the bathroom because the 901 was only just pulling up. It was late, she was early, go figure. She wandered over to the back of the stop and leaned against the glass pane that had the timetables on the other side. No one noticed her or paid her any attention. Flicking through her phone, she side-eyed the double doors of the bus. By her estimation, about 24 kids would be standing in the aisle. And good for them, because that meant they'd make it in time. The children got on and the bus doors beeped closed. Then Carlotta strolled to the front of the tattered stop, where she sat down on the small bench. The school had 2 main entrances. One was in the street across from the church, the other closer to the river and around the street corner. Whichever one you chose, you were doing a brisk walk to get there from the station. Carlotta got off the 902 at 8:42 and sauntered over to the church square. There was no one there she knew, just an old man sitting on one of the large stone boulders dotting the area. She hopped onto the stone closest to her and farthest from him. With her eyes on her phone, she slowly went around, absent-mindedly hopping from one boulder to the next. "Carlotta Bruggeman?" Caught off guard, she twisted her body while in midair to the last stone. In doing so, she nearly knocked the old man upon landing. "Sorry," she muttered, now looking down at where her feet were. The man didn't acknowledge her, but quietly rose and left the square. "School's that way," the principal added, having crossed the street and moved within a few steps of Carlotta. He was a short, stocky man, with slick brown hair and a once-tailored navy suit that he now kept unbuttoned to accommodate his belly. "Yes, Mr. Stevens," the girl nodded. She hopped off and straightened her backpack. "I'm just waiting for my little sister to get back," she said innocently. The principal followed her pointy finger to the sandwich shop on the corner of Church Street and Prudence Road. "You're both late," he shook his head, buying into her lie. Though she had an answer ready, a good one at that, she didn't have to give it. In the distance, Mr. Stevens spotted a new target, which he locked onto. It was moving briskly, decisively, so he did too. "Get to class," he snapped at Carlotta over his shoulder. He left her behind and lightly jogged to his next student victim. Back onto her boulder, Carlotta did a quick return trip over the stones before dropping into Prudence Road. For over a decade, there had been a sandwich shop on the corner with Church Street. Family owned at first, then replaced by a chain store, and finally another chain store when the previous one went bankrupt. The place was fed by a steady stream of students, and at its busiest about 15 minutes before the school bell rang. By now, it was deserted. Kara glanced up at the sign, which looked faded and cracked. She'd never understood why this place seemed to struggle so much. Next to the sandwich shop, there was a rundown clothing store, some equally rundown houses, and a pizza place that had opened just last year. Carlotta figured the newcomer would make it 2 years, maybe 3. Either way, she'd be gone by then. Carlotta Bruggeman? She jerked her head around. You idiot, she sighed. Nico tapped the bottom of her backpack when he caught up with her. And you didn't even do the voice right. But you looked anyway, he nudged her. As they passed the crumbling houses next to the sandwich shop, Nico's smirk faded to his milder signature grin. With a bounce in his step, he let his nose guide him through the front door of the pizza place. Breakfast was calling. It called to Nico, certainly, about 3 times a week. Those warm, fatty smells of cheese and dough weren't inviting to Carlotta in the slightest, not at this time of day. I ate, she said. She hadn't. Just sit with me then. Fine, Kara relented. If only the restaurant had the good sense not to open this early in the morning. Not only did they open, but they had no breakfast foods. Somehow they figured that the same menu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner was the way to go. Nico followed his nose to the buffet, while Carlotta straggled near the entrance. Perhaps the smell would be less nauseating once they sat down in one of the booths. She eyed the buffet, which was fully stocked for a crowd of half a dozen people, her and Nico included. She wondered how long those pizzas were kept in there and whether some might even be served for lunch or, God forbid, dinner. You'll have a few slices, yes? Nico asked without waiting for an answer. He'd already turned to face the counter again. Rolling her eyes and exhaling, Carlotta strolled further into the restaurant. Around the corner from the buffet, she could finally see the faces of the kids in the far left booth. She knew them, Ellen and Dan. They knew her. They had chosen not to know Nico, a fact made clear through previous run-ins and again today. They were about as similar as fraternal twins could get, Ellen and Dan, sharing everything from their preppy clothing choices to their passing grades to their whispered opinions. Huddled in the very corner of their burgundy booth, the twins were throwing furtive looks past Carlotta and toward the counter where Nico was standing. And so, to make a point, Carlotta moved into their field of view. She walked over to their table and plopped down on the bench, right beside Dan. Has Stevens been this way? She asked, while unzipping her bag. As if he needed more time to realize she was there, Dan slowly turned his head in the palm of his right hand. His elbow was on the table, shoved so far forward that he might as well lie down and nap. Probably, he sighed. Ellen faintly nodded in agreement before getting back to watching Nico. Probably. Kara hadn't dug her phone from her backpack yet, but noticed a clock on the opposite wall above the registers. 9:15, it said. So yes, Stevens had probably retreated to his office at this point, having started his rounds on the far end of Prudence Road. Depending on how busy his schedule was over the next hour, he may be back for seconds, though. He asked me to blow into his face once. She said it so casually, like a passing thought, that it took Carlotta a few seconds to realize the absurdity of Ellen's statement. He asked, "What? Nico? What are you—" "Stevens," Ellen replied, turning her head toward Carlotta in the same lazy way her brother had done. Her elbows were off the table at least. "Stevens, the principal," she repeated, and then continued, impatiently waving her hand. He asked me to blow air into his face in the school bathroom. And finally, eager to return to her spying and to her phone, he thought I'd been smoking, Ellen added. Oh. Now Carlotta understood, and she was inclined to believe the story. Stevens had outlived 2 sandwich shops and 3 clothing stores. For over a decade, he'd been the unchallenged commander of his little school universe. And therefore, he'd turned rule enforcement into a challenge of its own, pursuing it at the expense of any social boundaries. What the hell? A steaming plate hit the wooden table. Is that? Ellen recoiled. Dropping his bag onto the floor, Nico slid next to her into the booth. He seemed oblivious to Ellen's growing disgust and proceeded to dunk the first of 4 pizza slices into his mouth. Seriously, what is that? It smells rank, Ellen winced. Trapped between the 2 boys, she scooched closer toward Dan, who seemed more awake now. Dan's head had finally left his right hand, though it was still wobbling precariously. Vol au vent pizza? Nico replied matter-of-factly as he scarfed down. He reached the end of his first slice and bit into the thick crust, which oozed a cheesy, creamy filling. Opposite her ravenous friend, Kara looked on with mild fascination. He did have an air of giant lizard about him that was strangely intriguing. Vile, gagged Ellen. It's just chicken, the lizard said. At this rate, feeding time would be over in minutes. And mushrooms, Kara smiled at Nico. And meatballs. It's stew, countered Ellen. Chicken stew on a pizza crust, gross. She seemed to take offense at the mere thought of it, not just the reality of what was on Nico's plate. But that's how you eat it, he mumbled halfway through his second slice. What? No! Vol au vent goes in puff pastry and you have it with, well, it's kind of the same thing, isn't it? Dan interrupted his sister, who hit back with a look of disgust. It's just a different dough, Dan continued. You're having the same, it's not the same at all, Ellen snapped at her brother. This was a rare case of dissent between the 2 siblings, or rather betrayal from Dan. While Ellen and Dan bickered over the definitions of pastry and dough, another familiar face entered the restaurant. On account of his lanky frame, Carlotta could just about see the boy over the buffet counter. She craned her neck and shifted in her seat to get a better view. Have one, Nico told Kara, breaking her gaze. Carlotta glanced down at the pizza plate he'd shoved in her direction, which had 1 slice left. No thanks. What? You were gonna have some? His confusion seemed genuine, like it always did. I wasn't, but no, thanks, Kara insisted. She had no patience for this today. Oh, come on, it's no worse than a margarita pizza. Oh, it so is. In her corner of the booth, Ellen smugly folded her arms, pleased to have someone join the right side of the vol au vent debate. Never mind that it was still a tie, even with Carlotta's vote. Guys, you may want to go, someone mumbled. They all looked up. The boy Carlotta had seen enter the restaurant was standing by their table. As she had learned in math class at the start of the year, his name was Ben something. There was definitely an A in his last name, or maybe an O? Ben something gestured through the restaurant window at a figure in the distance, who had just rounded the corner into Prudence Road, and who was, for now, marching away from them. Even as a distant speck, the principal was easily recognizable. His dark blue suit jacket, unbuttoned to show a sparkly white shirt underneath, bobbed in a distinctive way to the rhythm of his footsteps. Great, grumbled Kara, tracking Stevens as he moved away from them. She slid out of the booth and lifted her backpack by the strap. She stood next to Ben and watched Stevens disappear from their window view. Still in their corner of the booth, the twins took over some of the freed up bench space, but didn't bother getting up. "Whatever," Don scoffed at Ben and Carlotta. Once he'd confirmed the distant speck was in fact Stevens, Don went back to slouching on the table. His sister went back to tapping her phone. Sidestepping Ben, Carlotta swung her bag over her shoulder and began walking away from the booth, until she was stopped by the cashier. "You haven't paid yet." "I didn't buy anything," she glared at the young man. "Your friend did." Kara spun around. Apparently, her dear friend Nico had slipped out of the restaurant. On the edge of their table sat a sad plate with 2 pizza slices. There was one cooled-down vol au vent slice and one slightly warmer margarita, which Nico had managed to throw on as he made his way out. How nice of him. Now Carlotta got to pay the surcharge for taking 5 slices. She was livid. She slapped a bill down onto the table and stomped off. "Take it!" She waved at the money and then the leftover pizza. Outside the restaurant, Carlotta waited for a minute and tried to calm herself. She was soon joined by Ben. "Ben Ongena," she suddenly remembered. "Are you going?" Ben Ongena asked, vaguely moving his head in the direction of school. "No, why?" she huffed. "I'm late anyway." He nodded to the ground. After a few seconds, where she took a deep breath, Kara tried that answer again. "No, I don't think it matters," she said, more calmly. "You?" "I think I will," Ben responded. He nodded at her this time. Carlotta nodded back ever so slightly. Despite his lanky frame, she and Ben seemed to be of similar height. He was hunching, she noticed, and hiding it by digging his hands deep inside his pockets. "You stopped wearing blue?" asked Ben. He pointed to his face, referring to hers. While he lifted his hand, it slowly dawned on Kara what he was talking about. She unfurrowed her brow. "Oh, yeah, got bored of it," she replied. She awkwardly pursed her lips, all of a sudden feeling very aware of her face and of the layer of makeup painted over it. Ben nodded. He crossed the road and disappeared around the opposite street corner. Kara watched him go. She wondered if he'd actually get to class and where he stood in the whole vol au vent debate. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this little story snippet, and I wish you a wonderful, restful day. See you soon.